So, will Singapore and the US Grand Prix be the deciding factors behind who will be our next title winner? Plus, Max Verstappen's maiden victory on his GT3 debut. We're going to dive into this and more right here on Apex Connect. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Apex Connect podcast. It's your host, Dwayne, and today we'll be diving into a topic that's been on my mind for the past couple of days. Can Oscar Piastri secure the championship title by Mexico, or will he crash and fumble the bag and give up to Max Verstappen? Let's dive into it. Now, Singapore is honestly one of my favorite street circuits on the F1 calendar. The views of Marina Bay, the tight twists and turns, especially around turns 16 and 17, makes this track extremely difficult to overtake on, except for near the end of Sector 1. Currently, McLaren's Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are leading the fight with 324 and 299 points respectively. However, what's making the team worry the most is none other than the man himself, four-time world champion Max Verstappen, currently sitting at 255 points. Realistically speaking, Oscar should be able to close the championship battle by Mexico if he continually finishes P1. But let's not forget about what happened during the last race in Baku. In addition, Max has been performing at an all-time high with his stellar victories in Monza and Baku. This alone has shown us that Red Bull has realized what happened to their car. They introduced a new floor upgrade and now is performing significantly well. I mean, we have a real title fight till the end in Abu Dhabi because Max, with a top car in top form, he's literally unstoppable. So Oscar and Lando have a fight on their hands. So naturally, the question I had was, what will it take for Max Verstappen to win the championship? Well, based on some simple math and delusion, let's break it down. With 7 races remaining, Singapore, US Grand Prix, Mexico, Brazil, Las Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi, 3 of which are sprint weekends, we could look at 3 different ways Max Verstappen could win the championship. The first scenario, I love to call this one the delusional, clean, straightforward option. The assumption is Max Verstappen wins everything from now until Abu Dhabi. That means all 7 Grand Prix, all 3 sprint weekends. Now, we all know that each Grand Prix victory equates to 25 points and each sprint win equates to 8 points. The maximum point haul that Max could get is 199 points, which will bring him to a grand theoretical total of 454 points. This could all come to fruition if Oscar Piastri scores below 130 points from now until Abu Dhabi, which is the equivalency of getting P2 finishes for that 7 race duration. Bottom line, I don't see this happening, but this scenario is mathematically airtight. In my opinion, the second scenario is probably the hardest one to achieve, but the most plausible. I love to call this one the hard but achievable scenario. So let's break it down. If Piastri constantly finishes P2, Max would need to have all 7 dominant weekends to be his to claim victory. If Piastri finishes P3, Max needs to have 6 dominant race weekends. If Piastri finishes P4, Max would need to have 5 dominant sprint weekends. And if Piastri finishes between P6, P7 or lower, Max would need to have 4 dominant sprint weekends. Bottom line, Max needs to be dominant through and through. An example I came up with, it's minimal but plausible. It includes 4 dominant weekends and Piastri's bad luck with maybe 2 DNFs or 3. Let's take a look at that. Singapore, Max wins, Piastri DNF. Austin, which is a sprint weekend, Max dominates, claims victory for the sprint race and the GP. Piastri finishes 8th in the Grand Prix. Mexico, Max must win Mexico. Piastri probably gets P8 or worse. Sao Paulo, which is another sprint weekend, Max dominates that sprint weekend. Piastri DNFs. Las Vegas, Max wins that race. Piastri scores low. I'm talking about P6 to P10. Qatar, which is the final sprint weekend of the F1 calendar, Max claims victory. Piastri scores outside the top 5. And Abu Dhabi, Max wins, claims victory, and Piastri scores below in the top 6. Bottom line, Max needs to have 4 to 5 dominant weekends to claim victory with this scenario. My last scenario, I know it's probably extremely far fetched. I guarantee you it's not going to happen, but I'll just toss it in there anyways. I love to call this option the Hail Mary option. Disclaimer, this scenario is pure delusion. Essentially, if Max only wins 2 to 3 weekends throughout the remaining 7 Grand Prix, Piastri would need to have multiple DNFs or very low scoring weekends in order for this plan to work. Example, if Max wins 3 dominant weekends, including 2 sprint weekends, Piastri would need to drop between 50 to 70 points via DNFs or very low scores across multiple events. That is possible. Racing incidents do happen, but it's a fragile path that relies heavily on luck, retirement cascades, and team strategy failures to take an effect from McLaren. What would that look like in a hypothetical scenario from now until Abu Dhabi? Let's get into it. So, looking at our hypothetical data, we could determine the following. Singapore, Max must win. That's a hands down priority. If Piastri DNFs or scores very low, I'm talking about P6 or lower, Max's chances jump significantly. Austin, which is a sprint weekend, Max must take the sprint win and the Grand Prix victory in order to have a huge point score going towards his direction. If Piastri finishes outside of the podium here, this is a big advantage. Mexico, Max needs either a win or a very high finish, I mean P2 or P3, and Piastri has to score below P7 to get that margin in his favor. Sao Paulo, which is another sprint weekend, Max once again needs the sprint win and the Grand Prix victory to have the scale lean towards his direction. And Piastri DNF here would be the deciding factor. Vegas, Max needs the win hands down, and Piastri must score outside of the podium here. Qatar, which is the final sprint weekend of the calendar year, Max Verstappen needs to win the sprint race and the Grand Prix victory in order to have the favors lean towards his direction. And Piastri must score once again outside of the points. Abu Dhabi will be the final determining factor behind the Grand Prix title, behind the championship title. Max needs to seal the deal here with either a podium or a P2 finish, and Piastri has to score outside the top 5 for this to work. Overall, we cannot forget that McLaren still has number 1 car on the grid. They have a very top pit strategy crew. They have the wheels going and the motion to be the championship winners for the constructors and the drivers. All they have to do is ensure that Oscar Piastri remains calm, cool, collected, and everything goes according to plan. If they have more mishaps like what happened in Baku, then I guarantee you Max will just snatch it up and be the championship winner. But I don't see that happening, and I'm pretty confident Oscar Piastri will be our title winner. Now, we're going to switch gears a bit because I actually want to talk about an achievement that no other F1 driver has done before. Imagine winning a race in a different motorsport category while actively competing in the Formula One calendar season. No one else could have done it other than Max Verstappen. This guy literally breathes and eats racing. From his sim racing side quest career to now his maiden GT3 victory, Max Verstappen is truly a force to be reckoned with. Just gonna pull up the clip so you guys could really see how good of a driver Max Verstappen really is. Give me a second, and here we go. When we think about Max Verstappen, it's easy to focus on his accolades within Formula One. But here's the thing, Max is building an entire portfolio outside of F1. And in my opinion, it shows a lot about where his focus is going to lean towards. First off, Max Verstappen is a hardcore sim racer. He's been racing with Team Redline for the past couple of years, and for Max, it's not just a video game. For him, sim racing is training, strategy work, and maybe even the pipeline in towards future motorsport racing categories. Secondly, he's moving into GT and endurance racing. He's just completed the Nürburgring in the Cayman GT4. Also, he just won his maiden GT3 voyage in a Ferrari 296 GT3. And now he's doing the licensing to do the big ones. I'm talking about the 24 hours of Nürburgring and also the 24 hours of Le Mans. In my opinion, this shows Max is not taken as a casual racing side quest. No, he's fully committed into endurance racing, and this could be his possible future after F1. Third, he's putting down serious roots with his Verstappen.com racing program. This is not just a vanity project for Max Verstappen. It's literally his way of giving young talent a pathway into driving, especially motorsport racing, via the sim to track development program. Think of it as his little Red Bull style development program without any exterior noise, just focusing on pure talent and development on his terms. And then finally, we've seen Max Verstappen test the GT500 cars, the hypercars, the prototypes. Clearly, he's interested in racing outside the F1 bubble. But overall, what does this show you and I? In my honest opinion, it shows that Max Verstappen wants a life outside of Formula One because, as we know, F1 does not last forever. Endurance racing, GT programs, team ownership, it all looks like he's building a legacy that stretches well beyond the World Championship titles. So that will be all for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It will mean the world to me and grow our channel even further. And until next time, take care and drive on.